If I were to have had a child when I was a soloist at ABT, I don't think I would have become a principal dancer.
Because of the commitment to your craft, it really was kind of at the expense of social life.
Right.
You were telling a story in the book about how, as of like senior year in high school, you hadn't had your first kiss yet.
Oh no, I was really underdeveloped, I think, in my maturity and just life experiences, and also just this fear of like going down the wrong path, you know, coming from the circumstances I grew up in. It was like, I'm gonna stay on the straight and narrow. And I think I reacted the opposite of how a lot of children might respond in that situation. I just kind of was like even more introverted and afraid of ending up like a lot of people I saw around me. So getting to New York City, it was this sense of freedom in a different way for the first time. Like I was going out and like meeting artists and people from different walks of life, and then it was actually Taye Diggs who walked up to me and asked if I would come to his table because his cousin was interested, and I was like, I didn't know who he was at the time.
And you're thinking what?
And I was like, who's your cousin? And he pointed to this guy that I had actually been eyeing all night. I was like, I'll come right over. And the rest is history. I mean, it's pretty amazing that he was my first boyfriend. There was a connection, I think, you know, both of us being from California, like West Coast, being biracial. He listened really well and had like a different kind of like response and reaction to hearing that I was a classical dancer. His mother was on the board of directors of San Francisco Ballet when he was younger. He actually danced in San Francisco Ballet's Nutcracker when he was a kid. I mean, he has no dance experience, even though he teases me all the time. And it's like, remember when I learned at San Francisco Ballet? I'm like, you did an audition to be like a mouse, not quite the training of a classical dancer. But there was just a different bond and understanding and respect that I don't think I'd ever experienced.
He said the first time he saw you that he was gonna marry you.
Yes.
What made you realize he was the one?
I think it was the consistency. You know, he left the following morning after we met at this nightclub to go back to Atlanta where he was living. He was in law school there. And it was his commitment to staying connected, like talking on the phone. We'd spend hours talking on the phone, and it was just like a real genuine care. You know, the conversations we were having were, you know, about our careers and about things of substance. And I think it was just timing too. I was ready.
You gave birth to your first child, yes. A son, April of 22. What's that experience been like for you?
It's eye-opening. You know, we are in a loving marriage and are very supportive of one another, and it's hard. It just makes me look at all of my relationships and with a new kind of respect and light, you know, and maybe understanding of why people are the way they are. And there's just like a different openness and love in my heart.
How do you think your upbringing impacted how you are as a mother?
I think it's given me this balance of, I know what I want Jackson to have and what he deserves, but I also want him to be grounded and know that not everything should just be handed to him. Me and all of my siblings have worked so hard for, you know, the stability we now have in our lives.
We've been fortunate to feature a lot of, you know, really successful people for episodes of the show, and that's kind of an ongoing topic we'll talk about, where you want to create opportunities for your kids that are endless and that you have earned the right to do, but the balance between that and avoiding raising a little brat.
Exactly. Yeah. It's on our minds every day.
Really?
I mean, he's only 6 months old and we're still like, do we see it coming out? Do we see a little brat coming out? Like, what do we need to do?
How about the hardest part so far of motherhood?
I think it's just not having guilt. I'd say that's the hardest thing. You know, I went back to not dancing work, but everything else that I'm doing, pretty immediate. But there's just this, you know, like sense of I can do more, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm going and I'm missing, you know, one of his feedings or something. And I think that's been the hardest part for me, is just trying not to get caught up in the guilt.
More kids?
Yes, I would love to. I mean, I'm 40 now, so, I mean, women have children into their 40s now. But I come from a big family. I'm one of 6 children, and I've always wanted to have my child to have a sibling or siblings. It was one of the best things about my childhood was having, 5 best friends right there with me every day.
Conscious decision to have kids later in life?
Yes and no. I feel this is when it was supposed to happen. But it's also really difficult as a classical dancer, as an athlete, as a woman. And so, if I were to have had a child when I was a soloist at ABT, I don't think I would have become a principal dancer, which is terrible to think about.
Why do you say that?
It's you're looked at differently. Maybe you're not taking your career seriously.
To what extent do you think it's important that perception changes?
You learn so much by living your life, and you become a better artist by having all these experiences. And so there's this kind of double-edged sword where in professional companies, they expect you to be so committed to your craft and not have these outside experiences. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we want you to be this artist, but you have no experiences. So what are you drawing from? So, I think that it's important that we're treated like adults in the classical ballet world, which is rare. We're often treated like children and called boys and girls as adults. There's just a respect level that you can be responsible and have a child or have these other, outside experiences and still be committed to your craft.